我变得越来越强，超出我的负荷了。我变得越强大了。全身充满了力量。我变得越来越强大了，这么做不太好。我需要更多全身充满了力量。我的戒律太低。
我并不。
戒律不足。我的戒律太低。不断精益求精。戒律不足。我需要更多戒律。我变得越来越强大了。我还在等。我变得更加强大了。
灭尽守护者来了。
这个家伙的死期到了。 要回城镇，我变得越来越强。我的力量越来越能收放自如。勤修苦练，终于得到了回报。戒律不足。我变得越来越强大了。全身充满了力量。 终于得到了回报。我需要更多戒律。我的戒律太低。戒律不足。勤修苦练，终于得到了回报。
灭境守护者来了！
我变得越来越强大了。我要回城镇。我变得越来越强大了。 再等一下。全身充满了力量。我做不到。还没准备好。再等一下，我的戒律太低。我的力量越来越能收放自如。我变得更加强大了。我的力量越来越能收放自如。
灭尽守护者来了。
我还在等。我需要更多戒律。 需要回去一趟。全身充满了力量。一名战友离开了我的队伍，不过我的敌人也随之削弱了。想挑战我？我带不了更多东西了，我要回城镇。我便幸运之神眷顾有勇气的人。这个总会有派上用场的时候。我的力量越来越能收放自如。戒律不足。
守护者来了。
我需要回去一趟。不断精益求精。
我相信你不用发誓，而是对骑士的。我
幸运之神眷顾有勇气的人，记得回来光顾。
来分伤，注意，跑风。好，萨满跑速，其他另外一边自己跑吧，那边没事。
快躲开！
好，那个链结加那个光环。然后大圈准备，大圈走。
50。
注意地板，等下还有地板哦。地板。5秒后分伤，5。
我这是走路快啊！
注意脚下。
来吃球。
还有多少？
帮忙吸收。
哇！好，分完它。
把那个树根补起来，把树根补起来。然后往等一下嘲讽，然后等一下拉进那个树根范围内。
注意脚下。
来吃球，不要让王吃到任何一个。
帮忙吸收。
然后准备进造，没事进造。然后汤姆开那个，小心不要站出那个范围。然后等一下我先好了。然后往后嘲讽。然后靠边，等一下树人小心。
注意脚下。
来吃球，帮忙吃球。来第2组准备哦，还有10秒。树人先把树人刷起来。来准备慢慢移动哦。慢慢移动，然后第二组去中间，其他人不要去哦，然后树根刚好在你旁边，直接喷后面，转后面 ，OK， 然后接着去把场地净空。可以的话，把那个树根底下那个黑色地板喷掉。 打树根，打树根，
树根，
然后去这边把这个场地进攻一点，然后吃球，吃球，不要让我吃到。然后我要准备出去。
树根还没补好。
树根补起来，树根补起来，树根。OK， 然后过来。
OK。
快找盾
把
牌。
进来，然后准备打进去喽，都进来。OK， 他会直接转阶段，不要被拉进去，这时候各点都可以开进去。有糖都可以吃糖哦。
二阶段准备。
我拿去边。
关门吸收。
接圈后面，旁边接圈。然后来换弹。来素人哦，旁边的帮忙控制一下，旁边的。王静的那几个不用，王静的那几个可以，这个出去，这个大圈出去，中大圈的出去。
关门吸收。
然后接圈，反。
逃开人群。
勤修苦练，终于
那个
得到了
炸的那个
回报。
出去了，这个要出去，他要炸了。后面的素人帮一下，那个可以打掉，帮忙打一下。稍微换弹。
注意脚下。
火旋风注意，火旋风完要接圈，
关门吸收。
接圈。
我接啊。
OK。
跳过，跳好东西。
我怕你被打出去啊，打出去也麻烦。
嘞。
他已经过了，
我的戒律太低。
灭境守护者到了。
还没准备好。我需要回去一趟。我变得越来越强大了。
谢谢你来到这里，这里。
充满了力量。我的憎恨太低。不断精益求精。
灭境守护者来了！
我要回城镇。我变得越来越强。 很有意思的。
魅镜守护者找到你了。
我变得越来越强。我需要回去一趟。
注意冲击波！
安全。
什么鬼啊？
那是哪一版啊？
准备 AOE。
斯摩德龙竟敢宣也肆虐梦境，怎么可能？
火焰德鲁伊把神殿聚集的能量重新导向了火源之界。这座神殿的神圣厅堂中放着生命之种，借助他们的力量。
打网一。
对。
稳定。有了这颗生命之种，距离阻止菲拉。
过来，去了，出去。手快杀掉，手快杀掉，手快杀掉！看英勇，看英勇，看英勇打进去！
目标是你。
30亿感觉到。别转了，转了，转了，转了，转了！
地板火！
小心地板，小心地板，不要踩在上面，自己减伤。旁边还有稍微安全区可以打的。哎，你们种树，你们种 DOT 干嘛走上来？
帮忙吸收。
然后到一个地扣到旁边了。
好烂的事。
那个
10点。
谁要踩去？有无敌的帮忙踩，有无敌的去，等下有无敌的去帮忙圈，这个大圈。
目标是你。帮忙吸收。
勤修苦练，终于得到了回报。这家伙非死不可！ 我的背包满了，我需要回去一趟。我变得越来越强大了。
看来你需要一件新的未知装备。
不断精益求精。我的力量越来越能收放自如。超出我的负荷了，我需要回去一趟。
看来你是
我买不起。
这个真不错。
Last weekend was only the beginning. We are back for more Mythic Dungeon International, The Great Push. Today, our Group B competitors will show us what they're made of as they push their keys and try to secure a spot in the global finals. I'm your host, Rook, and I'm joined by some no doubt familiar faces from last weekend and many other events here. Zyronic, Nagura, Tettles, and Duratnos. You'll be hearing more from them in just a moment, but before we get there, let's go ahead and take a look at where we've been, where we are this weekend, and where we're heading next weekend as well. So all of our teams to qualify had to go through the proving grounds here June 19th through 24th. Last weekend, you all got to see the Group A teams compete. It was an incredible weekend, really close with many of them with those eliminations. And we settled on our Group A winners, Mandatory, Madge, and Pedros per hour, who will continue on to the global finals. This weekend, we're at that roughly halfway point, and we have 6 more teams who will be competing, looking to narrow it down to just 3 to head into those global finals next weekend. Speaking of those, we will have our 6 total teams over the course of those 3 days as they duke it out and look to secure their place as the champion of the Great Push. Now here's our tournament format for the Great Push, in case anybody looking for pressure. 6 teams are based on the highest runs in the assigned zone. Points are awarded based on the level of each key from the complete, and each tournament day features 5 hours of gameplay. At the end of days 1 and 2, the lowest ranking teams will eliminate, and at the end of day 3, the top 3 ranking teams will qualify for the global finals. So no elimination that final day here this weekend. Now we've had a few changes actually here for some of the nitty-gritty details of the rules for the GP, so I'm going to pass it over to Tettles. Let us know a little bit about how things have changed this time around.
Yeah, so if you watched last weekend, you kind of already know what the format changes were. But first and foremost, like you were saying, we have a 3-2-1 dungeon schedule where you get 3 dungeons on day 1 as opposed to 4 that we did in the past. This kind of creates for more action on day 1 where, you know, teams have a little bit more time to push up keys on day 1. It's less about who's going to be able to 2 and 3 chest it. Although those things are very important, you know, there's going to be a little bit more time to be able to do potential chase keys on day 1. On top of that as well, I think that narrowing the field down from 18 to 12 teams really starts the weekend off hot, while it does kind of create a different dichotomy where you were only going to be passing 3 teams into the global finals as opposed to the 2 in the past. You know, the day 1 of Cup A, there is a 40-second gap between a team that got eliminated and a team that made global finals, and that's the kind of the competition that we're going to be seeing across the entire weekend. On top of that, we also have co-streaming, which every single team has required 1 co-streamer. My personal favorite, Kira Tank TV, although I have to give a notable shout out to For You with all the Duratnos pictures in the bottom left, but I think that like these teams are going to be able to show off some of their gameplay, show off some of their experiences, and if you're looking to, you know, play some of these specializations or some of these classes, make sure to check out some of the co-streams to see what the teams are doing across the entire weekend.
I promise everybody, no bonus points are awarded by Duratnos for, you know, kind of appealing to his good side here by putting pictures all over your stream of him, but definitely still something that, you know, you can angle for, you can try. But speaking of our teams, we have not only those perspectives that you'll be watching, but the entire team rosters, as our 6 teams for this weekend will be competing. We've got some heavy hitters in this one, as well as some newcomers to the scene. So, Duratnos, I mean, again, no bias here, whether they have pictures of you or not, but you want to give us a little bit of a lowdown about each of the competitors this weekend?
Sure, all right, so coming in with our first seed this weekend is Missed Count. This team you may remember as Eclipse, as Last Minute in the past. There are some gamers on this roster. They had really strong overall time trial times as well, so definitely a very scary team to look out for. Up next, a team that needs no introduction, but is going to get one anyways. It's Echo. They have come 9 times in first place in a row in MDI and TGP, and that streak was broken last MDI when it was Mandatory who dethroned them. So, are they back with a vengeance? Have they fallen off? Is there a dragon riding race that they're currently in the middle of? These are the questions that we're going to answer today. Up next, we have a North American contender here. We have Team Hope. Now, there are some players here that you recognize these players. They've played on a bunch of different good teams, a lot of different strong teams, but the big new combo here is Dorky and Ellesmere. Having never been on the same team at the same time as each other, now are teaming up for the first time. So we'll see how powerful that combination is. And then up next, wait a second. Who was that?
现身充满了力量。
Double check here. There's no way. Actually, they did, and they actually qualified with some pretty good times as well. So, Dratno's guild team in here. A couple of my guildies also joined by Frosty and Cryptix, some players that you'll recognize from some previous runs. Also Timbermaw here having played, and Terrasant in some previous teams as well. But this is their first time all playing together, so I guess aside from my guildies and my guild raids, which those don't count, I don't think. Definitely a team to look out for, a team that I'm personally rooting for, of course. Then up next, we have a team whose pronunciation, I'm going to go with GIF, I think is probably the way to pronounce this one. Yep. This is a very, a new team actually, a team that has been spectating, as they say in the past, but now qualified, here to win, here to upset, here to you know, take out those top few seeded teams, show us what they're made of. And then finally we have Ducks Can Fly, who actually, they've been up in the MDI/TGP things, mostly in Dragonflight, so this is a team that's coming in this expansion, Ducks Can Fly, who I'm personally, you know, looking forward to see what they've got for us in this weekend. This is a team that, based on time trial seedings, you know, Ducks Can Fly and GIF will be one of the teams that are kind of the more underdog teams, but you know, those things all can change very quickly once the actual weekend gets started. Doesn't really matter how your time trial seeding worked out. What matters is what happens on the weekend.
It really does, and I mean, these teams, a lot of them you'll recognize even from the MDI, and I mean, although some of you have some pretty confusing names here, I don't know,
there's just no way to know how to pronounce it.
GIF?
Yeah.
I think, yeah, no, I think it's impossible, actually. GIF. Okay, I think we'll go with Zyro on this one, GIF. But, you know, all of these really strong contenders, and of course, big powerhouses like Echo in here in the mix, but, you know, they've got a little something to prove after that MDI themselves, and getting in a little bit closer at these teams, because they're not just the teams themselves, but they're also individuals. Nagura, is there a player that you think everybody should keep an eye on, should watch this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, speaking of GIF, there's actually one player on that team that I do want to highlight, and it is Raven. Raven is the healer in GIF. She does play Rast with also some other healers as well. She only started playing late Legion, and just recently actually decided to be more serious about her, and plus in Dragonflight. So it's actually incredibly impressive that she managed to qualify for the group stage here. And her team is actually the only team that actually streams their proving grounds and also their practice keys, which is really cool. I did ask her why they decided to stream, and she said she wanted to encourage other teams to maybe also stream in the future, and just to generally be motivating to them, and she wanted to show that you can be competitive while streaming as well. So definitely go ahead and check her out over on her stream. She's going to be streaming today's action, and she also recently got a Maine Coon kitten called Mambo, so maybe you'll see the kitten as well if you check her stream out.
It's a good name for a cat.
Yeah, Mama's a great name for a cat. Also, I mean, with it being Maine Coon, keep an eye out, because if you just see a full-sized cat in the background, that's probably the kitten in question, but particularly fluffy. And I mean, you love to see it. It goes to show again that you don't have to be a player. Oh,
go back.
Wait, go back.
You gotta go back. Oh my god.
That's a kid.
It's cute.
That's... Dude, kid is a gross overstatement for what that thing is. That is a full-size cat.
Oh, how sweet. Love it, love it. Well, we got some good vibes to start today, and we got some great point of views for all of us to be watching. But again, it goes to show you don't have to be, you know, a seasoned veteran in the game for 1,000 years. Oh, so get up close on that cat. Look at that happy little kitty. Oh my gosh. The great push, more like the great pets of all the team players. This is great. I love this. But again, you don't have to be a long-running player in the game to be able to compete, and you love to see it with new teams, love to see it with new talent, and for folks just jumping in, going hard, we are sending you all the best, and we are loving your pets, so please continue to put them on camera. Thank you so much. But we have some predictions about how the weekend will shake out ourselves, and I think we're going to take a look at all of them now. I mean, Zyro, how's it looking for our prediction? Oh,
wow.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Okay.
So I was going to say, I feel like there's a very clear hierarchy duos of teams in terms of like their consistency and how good I expect they'll play throughout the weekend. Most of us who aren't on Copium are putting Mistcount and Echo in the top two because, of course, they're the teams that have stuck together for the longest. They have extremely high pedigree in terms of just good tournament results and high key pushing in general. The next two teams that I would expect to be like in the 3rd, 4th position, and I think this is going to be the really contentious spot for the weekend, is between Dragnow's Guild Team and Hope. I think either of them could very easily make it through. Personally, I think it's going to be Hope, but I see everyone else has gone with Dragnow's Guild Team as the 3rd team. I think either one of them can easily make it through. It really comes down to who plays better on the weekend. And unfortunately, our final two teams who did qualify the lowest, I feel like they're definitely a little bit less experienced. Now, of course, that's not to say that they still can't make it through. We saw how close it was last weekend in Group A, with every single team on the first day having the same score, except for one, which was mandatory, playing out of their minds. But, I mean, just based off the format changes that we've seen, I think this weekend is going to be incredibly close, and it might come down once again to this Sunday one.
Yeah, it very well may. I mean, you mentioned, Zyra, that it was just so close last weekend, and I think that having this adjustment with kind of the dungeon pools, as well as some of the sort of changes that have happened, it really makes it feel like it's so exciting seeing, like the tension of pushing those keys, as opposed to just feeling the pressure, day one especially, to like speed run as much as you can just to get something on the board. So it's been cool to see how it all kind of comes together here. I don't know, Nagura, how did you feel last weekend kind of set the tone for this weekend competition with some of, your guesses as to who's going to win or anything with the scene?
Well, I do think this group is going to be a little bit different compared to the first group, just because this group actually, they were able to watch Group A, see what they were doing. So I do think we're probably going to see some teams just go with some of the strategies we've seen last weekend. But of course, the affixes are something that are unknown still, so it's possible that they have to adjust their routes accordingly to the affixes. But yeah, I'm just generally excited. I think some of the teams might have been able to take some strats, but it's possible to see the higher keys if the teams were practicing the previous weekend's strats a lot and improved on them.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what they take away from this, for sure. But, it was kind of surprising we all had, many of us, I should say, had Dracos' guild team in there. You talked a big game about how well they might do this weekend, earlier. Do you think that's going to shake out?
Yeah, absolutely. Unstoppable guys. No way they could lose from here. Sadly, sure with the destruction will be so difficult. I've seen these guys oh wow, there those dungeons are. Okay. So first we've got radical keystones to start our weekend pod. So oh my gosh. This is an interesting texture here where it's going to be a lot. Particularly you've got radical hazard balls. Those are some of the dungeons that scale the bosses up to become the most lethal, the most quickly. And then also fusion as well. It feels like that sometimes. So this is going to be very, very difficult concept that you're going to need to finish with in order to probably make it to the end.
I will say on 14 though, it's not the end of the world. It does create like an artificial cap on the tyrannical keys, so it's kind of like what we saw last week, where a lot of the Tyran keys, they only were able to get pushed up to like that 21 level, and even that 20 level in some instances, because the Tyran is just so hard whenever you're starting to really push what the timer has to offer.
I guess we should touch too on the fact that, there has been some adjustment in the numbers of the dungeons. So in case somebody missed the first weekend, and you're looking at this going, wait, hold on, 20? Like, that doesn't make any sense, right? They have kind of dropped those levels down and then increased some of the difficulty thresholds on dungeons. Season currently. So a good reminder for everybody as well that is something to keep in mind. Now, we are going to be having the action, obviously, starting off here as everybody leaves. We're going to have a few folks leaving the desk. So, Veronic and Gratis, I believe we'll be seeing you head out for just a little bit, but I hope you enjoyed that.
Bye.
To it.
Bye.
The Nagura farewell. All the claps. Nagura, I have a question. Is it true that you have guildmates and ducks? Oh, okay. It's crazy that you're not. You didn't believe in them.
I didn't believe in them as much as Dragnow's believes in his team. I do have to say. I'm sorry, Luca. I'm sorry.
Kind of messed up, but kind of messed up, but all right.
I'll give you all the innovates if you keep healing me. Yeah, it looks like most of the teams actually ended up going into halls first. We do see Miscount in Ruby Life Pool, so the only team that decided otherwise is Miscount, which is our #1 seeded team going into this weekend. So very interesting. We do also see same comms. One thing that I was thinking about that might happen is that maybe we're going to see the Archivoker drop for the early keys because they now knew that they're going to start with 14, right? Because last weekend we didn't know the key level initially, so maybe there's no point practicing another comp if you don't know what the key levels are that you start with. Because we do know dropping the AUG gives you like a little bit more damage, but if you manage to 3-chest the keys or 2-chest them anyway, even with the AUG, then of course you're going to be sticking to that because that's what you're practicing the most, and then it makes it's a lot easier to coordinate your CC and your cooldowns and everything.
Sure, I think that it comes down to kind of how you feel about practice, right? Because I think the big thing is just like those +2 and +3 level breakpoints, and so if you practice a different composition like you're implying that could have happened, I think it makes a lot of sense. You know, you're going to be able to save probably 20-30 seconds in some of these dungeons, but at the end of the day, if it's going to change up your strategy dramatically from what you're doing in practice, I don't think it makes a ton of sense. The Archivoker still does have value in like those lower level keys. I think the control that you mentioned is definitely the big one. How are you feeling about Miscount and Jiff going into Ruby Life Pools while the other teams are going to Halls of Infusion?
Yeah, I don't know. Like Ruby Life Pools is a dungeon that was part of the Proving Ground, so I'm sure most teams are very familiar with that dungeon. I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with affixes, or maybe they just like one or the other more. It's interesting because I personally think that Ruby can be difficult. Like we've seen in Group A.
I agree.
It was super difficult as you got into the higher keys, and you can easily have full wipes. You know, if a boulder hits a pebble, or if you pull a dragon on accident, or one of those destroyer packs. The affixes though are pretty easy in Ruby, right? You have Entangling, Bursting, while you do have Incorporeal in halls, which to be honest, with a priest is also not that hard. So I guess they just chose easier affix dungeons. This Asher Vault has Sanguine, so that is definitely something you want to think about a little bit more.
I think that you were spot on. I think they're going to probably take a lot of these teams are going to take up a large portion of their break right before going into that Azure Vault, taking it before that Sanguine, and making sure that you have like a route that you're comfortable with to be able to 3-chest that dungeon on a 14 is important. And actually, Dusk Can Fly is already on that play more about 3 minutes into that key. So they're actually the only team that went to that Azure Vault, where Jiff and Miscount went to Ruby, and the other teams went to Infusion.
Wow, it's actually interesting that you go after Vault first with that Sanguine affix.
So the timer's really lenient in this key, especially if you're doing it on live. It's a really easy key to, you know, +1, even with a decent amount of mistakes. Now, we need to see this +3ing it, though. I think all 3 of these 14s are easily +3able. And so that kind of reduces your amount of wiggle room a little bit. I don't know. So you have to have really good Sanguine management, I think, to be able to 3-chest this dungeon.
Yeah. Yeah, other than that, no surprises with the comp, of course. Some people have, or the chat has been asking if the rule is still in place that the teams have to stream, and yes, one player of each team will be streaming at least, so definitely go ahead and check out their streams if you want to see any teams, because of course on the first day, on the Friday, we have 6 teams that play simultaneously, and we can't feasibly show all 6 teams with us still being able to see something on the screens, so we're mainly going to be showing 4 of the teams. If you want to be checking out one team in particular, we're going to go ahead and check out the individual series.
Echo just smashed that Watcher Iridia split 5 minutes and 30 seconds, where it looks like Hope and Dretna's Guild team are both going to be around that 6-ish minute mark, maybe even like 6:15. That's crazy. Echo already trying to get a little bit of an early lead. Again, the big break point is just being able to 3-chest this dungeon on 14. It's not like a huge deal if you're able to beat it by 30 seconds over another team, but it's still... It bodes well moving on to the rest of the weekend, I would say.
Yeah, and also bodes well for the higher keys, right? Because we definitely saw some differences in...
Exactly.
I don't mean like the highest keys, but like the second, like after after the 3 chests, right? We've seen last week, for example, Mandatory managed to 2 chests a lot of the keys that the other teams only managed to get 1 chest in, which in the end didn't necessarily matter for the utilize their +2. But if that happens and like he and they manage to utilize their +2 and +3, that will manage, and that's obviously a huge advantage. So if Echo is getting that quick in a boss, let's say at 17 and 18 or not, then that will obviously be a huge advantage. So we'll see how the other teams are doing against that. We see both Dragon's skill team, Cole and Echo do go the same route though. That's also something we've seen as well with the structure frog area. This season, because last season a lot of the teams just went left instead.
We saw, oh gosh, I want to say it was Pages per hour last weekend where they had False Confusion do that massive left side pull. I'm kind of interested in seeing if any of the teams are also going to continue to do that. That's like a pretty common live team hallway. That hallway is pretty difficult to execute, but if you have the perfect execution, it seems like maybe it's a little bit faster. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
It's hard to tell, because I do think, like, depending on how you're doing this, you also have to think about the person who's leading us, who has to gather up all the pulls, or all the knocks rather.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's always hard to tell. You can, of course, compare time between the teams, but you would have to see each team decide.
I think it looks like they got a random bonus shock from somewhere. I didn't see exactly where they were going to get that mob from, but they might have a little bit more count once this mob ends up dying over the other teams. Like we were talking about, for running the same route. I think these might be No, they didn't pull the pack. They didn't pull the pack.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, but look, so Drana's guild team bottom right also has 70.57% enemy forces, whereas Echo's going to be able to have that 1 mob of additional count. I don't really know what it's going to do differently. I think it might just be something that you're going to be doing differently slightly in this hallway going into Kajen, but it's not going to be like a large routing difference. It's definitely not going to be like 1 pull different.
Oh, it's from the frog room, maybe.
Oh,
interesting. Then they wouldn't be ahead in count. Right? Then they would be the same count.
But I think that Hope and Drana's guild team might have just, mind see those mobs or caged it or not pulled that pack.
Oh, that's also possible. Yeah, actually, good point. Yeah, maybe they just skipped it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Interesting.
It's interesting that they have it. I don't think it's going to yield too much, but it's still something to note in the future that it's a slightly different route.
Alright, well, Miscount is now on Kokia, of course, really life goals being a super quick dungeon. One thing that the 30-minute timer does is that it also makes the 3 chests like very close. Like you do not have a lot of time to get the +3. We've seen all of the teams get a +3. I think all of the teams last week to get the 3 chests here as well. So I do think that Miscount can do it too, especially in that 14. They're going to be doing a huge pull after this boss, so they do for sure have enough time. But yeah, Hearthjack's also playing Frost here. This is something that we've seen last weekend as well, where the mages would play Frost on the lower keys and then switch to Fire on the higher keys.
Fire is a little bit lower overall damage, which doesn't matter in, I would say, most situations, because the priority damage from the Fire Mage just makes a lot more sense. But in the lower level keys, it's kind of like you were talking about. You just want that upfront overall DPS factor to be something that you're looking forward to, as opposed to the more efficient priority damage, because it's going to speed up these like lower level keys just by a hair. Do you think 17 is 3 chestable, Nagura? 17 ruby. Sorry, that is.
I don't think so.
I think it's kind of close, but I think that the teams like last weekend were 2-chesting the 18, right? Yeah. So I think that changing that to a 3 chest of a 17 seems unlikely, but it's definitely possible.
Yeah, we're gonna have to take a look at that. I mean, there's only 3 bosses in here in this Tyrannical, but unfortunately, like Kokia is a boss that just takes so much longer on Tyrannical because of the elementals that spawn. So yeah, you'd see a nice hover skip here by Fenner.
I was looking at that, yeah.
Here for Miscount. One thing to note about Fenner as well is Fenner is actually a main healer usually, but
yeah.
switched to Ogrevoker for the team. Because AJ's healing. I mean, Ogrevoker, of course, gotta be played all of the time. So, not sure, like Fenner, I think switched to the damage dealer generally for the season. I think he can play more than just Ogrevoker as well. But yeah, interesting to see a healer switch role and just play that Ogrevoker instead, which most other teams have a damage dealer.
Yeah.
The Ogrevoker.
I will say, watching their keys on live, Thanner's level of communication and being able to help the group out on this Ogrevoker has made a large difference for, I think, this group's synergy. And I'm kind of interested in seeing how well this group is going to be able to do adding Thanner in. Because they've kind of had like a rotating fifth for a little bit. This core of Kira, AJ, Hearth, Jackson, Yargi has been together for a while now. And they've kind of had that rotating fifth. I think last season for MDI was like Krona on Team Eclipse. And so, you know, adding Thanner into the fray, I'm kind of interested in seeing like how that elevates their gameplay. Ooh.
Yeah, I agree.
Look at the Hulk invasions. Both guys are building the are running the exact same round where Echo has about 3% more count, a little bit over 3% more count. I wonder. Okay, so the only remaining pulls are just the hallway gauntlet, which is it's required trash. Yeah, are they gonna skip that dragon? Is that possible?
It's interesting. I don't know if that's possible actually. I never tried. Like I always thought the last bridge is just like you play it. Yeah, it has true sides. The only thing that you technically have to pull is like the last ragers because they spawn a mini boss, and then you have to pull a mini boss, right, to spawn a boss. So those things you have to do. But that bridge pack, technically you can skip it. It's just very hard to skip because there's no like room to go past it. And as you say, it has stealth detection, right? So
okay, so there's 50% chance we're about to see some tech, 50% chance they might have accidentally pulled bonus mobs and have a bit too much count. So I don't know if I would bank on them going over count though, right?
Yeah, I don't think so either, because at first I was thinking, okay, maybe this shock trooper, it could just be that they will over count
for funnel or something.
Yeah. Or keeping up trinkets. Which technically I don't think they're running this trinket here, but I mean, that is something that I consider, but it's not just a shock trooper right now. Right? It's more than a shock trooper in different.
Yeah, it's a little bit more. I think it's one of the patrolling trash packs too. But they might just be up count. Yeah, it might be. Alright, we're just playing bonus trash, I guess. So there's gonna be 2.5% or 3% over that.
Oh
well. This pull's still very scary. It's a bit less dangerous on a 14, and even a little bit less dangerous on Tyrannical. But as we get into higher levels, being able to do this pull, it saves you a lot of time, but it's very dangerous for your tank. That Glacial Proto-Drake, particularly that Ocean Breath damage, is incredibly potent.
So we also do see these teams fully focus on the Ragers that spawn the mini-boss to make sure that they can pull in the mini-boss as early as possible before finishing off the rest of the pack, which is something that usually for safety you want to make sure you finish off the Proto-Dragon so you don't get more of those AoE casts going through, or you want to focus the cast or the Ice Collar, which can be pretty dangerous as well with those ice shards. But yeah, Ragers being focused here. And we also saw Ghostface actually going down for Dax and Fly on that.
Yeah, he died on the breaker skip. It looks like he didn't have his meld available.
Oh yeah,
I don't know.
Like it.
Yeah, so he just ended up dying. It's unfortunate he practiced cheat death to the skip, but it is what it is. Like that's the only downside. In a 14 on Tyran, you probably are not going to need that. There is a world on like a really high key, like a 21 or a 22, Umbral Skull can like one shot you with the Dragon Claw. And so you'd really like to have that cheat death, but at this level, Ghostface is never going to die.
Alright, so Miscount did finish their Ruby, and they actually finished the key. I think it was around 1420? 1422? So what do you think?
Oh,
Shock Skull's down. They do have Battle Rest though, should be fine. Did lose a little bit at the end of the Bloodlust there, but Yeah.
不断精
Yeah,
进。
so
He got melee with the
20,
boss.
oh, yeah. You have to taunt that boss actually as it's landing because it resets aggro when it's going down. Well, I mean, you never really generated aggro because the boss is flying around in phase 1, right?
Yeah. And
Again,
I think it wipes
14-22.
threat the moment it lands.
What do you think? 3 chestable on the 17? So 18 minutes is the 3 chest timer. And miscount cleared in 14:20 approximately.
I'm gonna go with yes. Look at the route that they're running. The route that they're running in the bottom left is actually very aggressive. They had Defiler Drogo into their first pull. It got removed off the screen as I was talking about it. Now we're back. So they have Defiler Draghar into this first pull with the Juggernaut, please. And that's actually a massive time save. It actually allows them to get the first boss pulled a lot quicker. Look at this. Meladris is going to be pulled in the minute 50 seconds into this dungeon. That is crazy fast.
Yeah, that's actually quite insane. I don't know. I'm curious.
I think it's doable.
So let's say that miscount is able to 3 chest distance actually kind of close and other teams don't manage. Would they get a big advantage, or would the other teams be able to just 2 chest the 19 while miscount can only 1 chest the 20?
Well, so Ruby was Tyran last week. It was Tyran raging, and the cap on that, the cap that we saw was a 20. I think Mandatory started to go back and was trying to do a 21. But that was a chase key, right? The 21 was the chase, whereas the 20 was the easily doable key that was done by all of the top qualifying teams. I think the 3 chest is actually pretty big here. It saves you a dungeon that you're not gonna have to do. If you're able to put up that 20 today. If you're missed count and all the other teams are able to put up that 20, then you probably don't have to rerun that dungeon until like Sunday. And so
That's actually a very good win. So it would be a huge advantage if they can 3 chest while other teams cannot.
Yeah. I think it's a pretty big deal. I think being able to 3 chest this dungeon, if some teams are and some teams aren't, that's going to set back some teams to the point where they might be eliminated, especially if that 20 is actually turned into realized points as opposed to potential points. Mm-hmm. And it seems like it would be. That just seems like a situation that it would happen. But miscount definitely playing an aggressive route in the 17 to the point where they're trying to 3 chest this key. They're going as hard as possible. You see Hearthjack still playing that Frost Mage.
Yeah, we also see the teams in Halls, Echo, Hope, and Dreadnought's Guild team about to finish off Primal Tsunami here. Definitely a lot closer on the timer for the 3 chest compared to the Ruby that we've seen. The 3 chest is 21 minutes. Definitely still doable for all teams here, like they're quite fine. But that for sure means that there's not going to be any 3 chesting on the 17, right? But the 2 chest is probably very like doable.
I was gonna say I think the 2 chest is doable, and then this dungeon's doable on Tyran. Do you think it's 21? Probably. It's Incorporeal Spiteful.
Kind of a bolt.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think the end of today is going to look like in terms of the Halls of Infusion level? A 20?
Well, I think Asher Vault is obviously going to be the highest key. They're going to be playing that the highest. Even though it does have Sanguine, I think the timer in Asher Vault is not that bad.
Yeah.
Compared to the other 2 dungeons. So I think you can push that the highest. While both Halls and Ruby, I think, are very hard to do, like, 21s, 22s in, right? So... But yeah, it's 3 dungeons. Like, this is the only day where we actually get 3 dungeons announced, so they're gonna be spending a lot of time just pushing up the keys. But if you see a 3 chest Ruby into another 3 chest into 1 more Ruby, that's like technically, if you one-shot all of those keys, that's not even an hour. So
I will see that. Yeah, because in Cup A, it was 19, 19, 20. For the teams that were making it to day 2, right? I think that was the score that they were posting. So maybe it'll be like 9.
Longer dungeons though, right? They had Nokud.
Noku's a 40-minute. Yeah, the Nokuds are a lot longer, whereas the Ruby's the 30-minute key. So maybe we see like what 2019 or something.
Yeah, I definitely think it's higher than Group A because even Asher Vault, yes, it's a 37-minute timer, but they can clear that a lot quicker. On the lower keys, right? While Nokud is a dungeon, even on the lower keys, it just takes you some time. So I think that definitely slowed the first group down a lot last weekend. So I do think that overall the keys are going to be a bit higher.
Triple Tyran, once you get to higher level keys, starts to slow you down a decent amount. Whenever you're pushing up these 2 and 3 chest timers, it's not like that large of a disparity between the two, tyrannical versus fortified. You know, there is some levels of distinction, but that really starts to rear its head once you start to get north of 19. That's where the distinction between a 19 tyrannical and fortified really starts to show up.
Yeah, we do also see all teams now done with their initial dungeon, except Dax can fly still in that Asher Vault. And all of them 3-chesting their keys. So they're going to be going up to that 17, and they're going to stay within the same dungeon. We did see some teams last weekend stay in one dungeon for a little bit too long, and then they ended up not having that much time at the end of the day. So we'll see what kind of strategy these teams are choosing today. If they're just, you know, playing the dungeon 3 times and then moving on, or if they just try to get some higher key. There we go. Dax can fly now down with the Asher Vault as well. Also 3-chesting it. Also a little bit closer than what we've seen for the rubies.
Echo is doing an insane pull here. This pull that they're doing right here is...
Okay, what were they pulling?
I think they're doing the pack that's in front of the Cheat Death, the pack that's to the right, and then they're sleepwalking in some of these containment apparatuses into this pull as well. Nice. I think that's why they had such a fast Watcher Iridius split, now that I'm able to see exactly what they're doing in this first area. It's not something...
getting in the apparatus so they can pull the next pack onto the boss?
Yeah, it's because you want to do the triple defender onto the boss, and just like doing these containment apparatuses into this pull, it makes a lot more sense. You're just going to be able to throw all of your CC and whatnot, and you don't have to worry about the containment apparatus casting that beam onto any player while that AoE from Watcher Iridius is going off. And so it's just a lot safer to do it into this trash pull.
Yeah, very interesting. I like those strategies. Maybe we can also see what Echo is doing with the Shock Trooper later on, once they pull that single mob. We can pay attention.
The question is whether or not that's intentional still.
Yeah, and we still want to see if they're going to go overcount again. If that's just their strategy, if they feel like they're getting some advantage out of that or not. But yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, look at the top left. Echo has Watcher Iridius pulled by that 3-minute mark, where Dratnos Guild team is not going to have that boss pulled until probably like 4 minutes or something like that. Hope also getting that boss pulled rather quickly. Oh, they have a lot of trash that's actually just coming into this boss too. So they only killed off the containment apparatus. They didn't even kill off the geomancers or any of the additional defenders, and they just ran all of this trash straight to the boss. That's spicy.
That is pretty spicy indeed.
That's so many mobs. That is actually so many mobs. At a high level, it's tough to do this because your Resto Druid's going to be a bit dry on mana. But like if they're full mana going into this pack, it's definitely possible to even play this many mobs of trash into the boss. But you get Spiteful Shades here. If you get the Spiteful Shades during Static Surge, it's kind of annoying.
Yeah, thankfully, there's no melee players, so you can just kite them out.
They would not stop complaining if there were, I promise. So we can't do that pull. Why not? With the Spiteful Shades, man.
So the top right, you can see Miscount. They're on their way to Kokia now. This is the dungeon where we said the 3-chest timer is pretty close. Not sure if it's even doable at all. They're still fighting the destroyers, actually. 18 minutes is the +3. So they still have more than 8 minutes left, which is for sure enough.
Is this the last destroyer they have to kill?
I think it's the last one, yes.
Oh my god, I think they're able to do this. This is...
Yeah, I think so too.
That's crazy. Because they're going to get this next Lust. Where do you press this? Last boss?
Well, I think it's probably better to do on the mini-boss pull if they decide to pull all of the trash together after Kokia. Just for like efficiency. Because almost always it's better to last like an AoE pull rather than a single target fight usually.
On Tyran, there's like 2 different lusts. There's the Kokia lust that you can do for your second lust of the dungeon. And then there's like the Destroyer plus Patrol pack. That's typically more of a fortified lust, but like we're only getting 1 more for the remainder of the dungeon, and we're already...
Yeah, exactly.
I
only get 1 more.
I don't think you press it on Kokia here. I don't think that makes a ton of sense. I think for me it's between the last boss and then like some double Tempest Channeler pull like you were describing.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Somebody save Hearthjack. Somebody get Hearthjack's through, man. Okay, good grip. Somebody save our mage.
Hearthjack's got gripped, then blinked out, realized he has to go back to spawn the attack, returned. Hopefully, mages have so much mobility. But yeah, there we go. Lust is actually being pressed here.
Okay.
So either miscount, like either they think they cannot 3 chest, or they think this is actually like the most efficient last here.
So,
or yeah, I don't know.
So the upside of lusting here is that you get fewer ads, which, I mean, having to kill off less ads is definitely like a pretty big deal over the course of like. I mean, that's why lusting it on a hierarchy makes sense, but on a 17, I just don't know. Like, are you going to be able to make that break point of like ad spawn? Like, are you going to beat that cycle regardless, just with your damage? Like, do you really need that lust? Like, how much is that going to provide you? Because like a high key lusting this boss saves you what, 2 ads maybe, which is a big deal. But on this level, it's like there is a question as to how much it really saves you.
Yeah, that does make sense. If they can skip 1 whole ad, that would for sure be worth it more than any other.
Yeah.
Lust on trash or the last boss. So we'll see. But yeah, I think when it comes to the timer here for the 2 chesting or 3 chesting or whatever on the keys that they're doing right now, I think that the hulls is a pretty easy 2 chest, but 3 chest is impossible.
I agree. Yeah.
The closest thing that we're not 100% sure about is if they can 3 chest the ruby or not. So both Miscount and Jif are in the ruby. So we'll see if either of those teams does manage that. But yeah, I think the 17 halls should be pretty easily 2 chested by all of the teams that are in there right now.
I think that you're spot on, and then I think that because the halls is going to be 2 chested on the 17, then teams will have to run the 19 today. But I don't think that teams will have enough time to run the 20, because I think that this Ruby and this Azure Vault are going to be able to be pushed up to that 20 level that we were talking about earlier. Now that I'm seeing it play out, I think that makes sense, where it's 20-20-19 for end of day scores for teams that are probably going to be safe. If you have anything less than the 20-20-19, those are teams that you're going to be limited.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So we do see Kokia for Miscount on the top right side is now 20% on the bottom of it. Looks like we have focus on the boss here. So this is what the last is probably doing with that. Because the boss is on the other side.
Yeah.
They're just cleaving it. So I guess maybe they just always focus the boss actually.
Hear me out. What if this is just like a greedy mage moment, and the mage lost it for themselves? Hearthjack said, I need more lust in this dungeon. Actual mage POV.
It's actually 4.5 minutes.
Well, so they're kind of high on count, right? So they don't have to use first point challenge. So you start earlier does this like cover skip across the gap. The 3 chest timer is 18 minutes, like we were talking about earlier. It's going real tight. On this level,
How fast?
probably 3 minutes.
3 minutes, yeah. So they have to put a strat in 1 minute and then do the box in 3. Maybe not too long after all.
Maybe it's like a 2:45. Okay, we're doing the entire path. So Miscount is really trying to push the advantage here. If it is a 3 chest dungeon and nobody else is, that would make Miscount like miles ahead of everybody else, because we saw 20 Tyrannical with the cap last week. And so like a 20, if you're able to put that up today, if you're Miscount, that's a dungeon that you don't have to rerun until Sunday. That would be like a really, really big win for Miscount from the 2 chests to 3 chests. If you're only able to get the 2 chests today, you have to run that dungeon on 19, and that's probably going to be your score in Total tomorrow, where you're able to rerun that dungeon with a +1 on the 20.
Yeah, but take a look at it. Still on this pool here. Hey, I don't know. Lasting this would have been good. So yeah, look at the timer. They have now, and they're still finding this kind of thing until it takes some time to boss spawn.
Yeah, kill the bot to spawn the boss. That's the break point for spawning the boss. Is the boss dying.
What is happening?
Oh man, I was thinking like maybe Swift. Without lust? This is a fast boss, right? This is one of the faster bosses.
Cross stage, really good at this fight.
That's true. This is one of the faster bosses. This high man, like, I don't know. Top has a lot of things with
There you go, boss will spawn in a second. They have... maybe a little bit more.
I'm gonna level with you. I don't love it. I'm gonna prefer it a bit more time.
The girl talking about crossmates. We have some questions from the chat about exactly that. I know you mentioned a lot of the teams have been taking crossmates to later, but is there a reason Frost and Fire? Tuttles, do you have any thoughts on why folks might be bringing these specifically?
Frost is blocked specific dungeons just for the two targets, single target lead. That's where the Frost Mage kind of excels. Is on these boss fights, it kind of excels. Fire, not priority damage, but single fire damage. That's why you see it also heavily ran into Rack and High Hollow, like that Ray of Frost value. I think that Nigger and I were talking about it a little bit earlier. It seems like it's just like the large amounts of overall DPS that it's able to do in Ruby Life Pool over the Fire Mage will almost certainly be played in like higher keys, because the Fire Mage just synergizes so well with how the Shadow Priest wants to be played. But in the lower level keys, you're looking for like overall DPS to speed up the key a lot more.
Nice.
Both are really good though. I think that's the important thing to know is like both Fire and Frost are incredibly good. You see some people playing Frost in all 8 dungeons. You see some people play Fire in all 8 dungeons the entire season. So it's not something that you have to really worry about one being drastically better than the other.
Awesome, thanks. There you go, chat. You've got your answer. You can keep it up.
Alright, so still looking at miscount, top left.
They're not.
30 seconds left.
Okay, is it 3 chestable? I don't think it is 3 chestable.
I don't think so. Like, I was thinking maybe if they would have lasted that trash pull, and maybe if they would have focused the mini boss to spawn the boss quicker,
yeah,
then they would have probably saved 30 seconds. But they played perfectly otherwise, right? They have 0 deaths.
That first boss split too is illegally fast. 521.
They're so fast.
Yeah.
It is rechestable. I don't know.
Just not by them.
Maybe. I mean, looking at miscount, right? They're killing the boss like 30 seconds over, something like that. I do think he can. I mean, I don't know.
What I will say is this.
I definitely think their last was not the most efficient one. Like, there's no way that Kokia last saves you the most time, right? I don't think so.
I don't know. You get the extra Mage Lust. It might.
Maybe. Yeah, the Mage Lust. Yeah,
it's tough to assess. Yeah. I will say that for missed count, not 3 chesting this dungeon, their end of day cap looks like it'll probably be like 19, 20. So they'll be at like 58 points at the end of the dungeon, at the end of today, which isn't bad. Like,
it can still be 19, 20. Personally, like, because you start a dungeon at the very end of the day, right? I think it's possible. Because if you remember last weekend on Friday, a lot of the teams finished a dungeon like 10 seconds after the time was over. So they didn't manage to start like a last key. They didn't manage to use their time like super efficiently because no good offensive just took so long. So a lot of teams just did not manage to get the last key in. So I do think we might see 2019 after all. But yeah, we'll see. It definitely does take a long time.
The three chests on the RLP would have ensured that.
Yeah, for sure.
Missed count had the opportunity, so we shall see.
Yeah, so I guess some of the other teams.
Okay, Echo is at 80.69 this time. They are 3% count under where they were last time. So I don't know what happened. Yeah. Incident.
Yeah, there we go. Echo now on Jin. One of those bosses that can be super difficult on the higher keys, where you have that ticking damage just do so much to the group throughout. And I think that is gatekeeping the teams here. This boss is mainly the healer mana, because the healers can heal an insane amount of periodic damage coming into the group, especially with the support of the defensives of the meta comp that they're running, plus of course the Alkaboker helping out a lot too.
Yeah.
But yeah, the mana is something that is going to be holding you back eventually.
Higher key levels on Tyrant, you end up playing Tree of Life and Innervade to really make sure that you're able to do a lot more healing. The downside of this is that you like lose that Convoke. You end up losing a little bit of the class utility from the Druid tree, but at the end of the day, like that's one of those things that you need to be able to have the mana over the course of the entire dungeon. It makes sense. Dude, Miscount in the bottom left is actually playing Dragheart into this first pull again, even on 19. Yeah. That's nuts.
Yeah, and we still play Frost as well. Does make sense, of course, for this dungeon being tyrannical as well. But yeah, interesting to see.
I will say the downside of this comp is it really sucks at killing the ads on second boss. There's a lot of different comps that have a lot more potent ad killing power than like the Mage Shadow Priest Aug comp. That's typically going to be like a limiting factor, but these teams, I think whenever they were doing this dungeon during time trials, they got a large amount of practice injected into their veins, being able to kill off those ads at any key level, probably.
Yeah. We do also see our 3 teams in halls now, all at Kjin. Looking at the splits, it definitely looks like Echo is the fastest, but not by much, right? Hope is 13.05, Echo is 13.00, 13.29 for Judges. Like, they're all really, really close together. Echo is the further ahead of the boss, though. Like, they did just start the dungeon quicker. And I guess they did the 14 slightly faster. So even though, like, the major thing that we talked about is, of course, getting those, like, thresholds, like being able to get a 2 chest or a 3 chest is the most important thing. But just being generally quicker, it still counts. As I said, like last weekend, we saw some teams go over the end of the tournament day by like 10 seconds, and they did not manage to start another key because of that, which is a huge deal.
That was unfortunate for them. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So if a team like Echo is going to save like 20, 30 seconds here or there, it doesn't look like much, it doesn't sound like much, but maybe at the end of the day, it is actually going to matter for them.
I will say it doesn't matter necessarily for this, but it did matter a lot for time tiebreaker going into the end of like up A, where, you know, Shinra Tensei had the same amount of score as Mandatory, but Mandatory had somewhere in the order of 11 minutes of time tiebreaker advantage or something that was just insane amount of time tiebreaker advantage, where it's, you know, that's just like a minute and a half in every single dungeon where you're just like slightly faster, which is like huge deal. So like the faster teams, I will say I think they scale into the higher keys better. It's not just something that is important for the lower keys and making those 2 chest or 3 chest breakpoints.
Yeah, definitely. Miscount on the bottom left now on that 19 key level. Of course, they're a little bit faster than the Halls teams or the Astrovault teams just because the time in this dungeon just being shorter. That's something that I wondered if the teams are paying attention. Like, I understand it's very difficult while you're competing to pay attention to the main broadcast to see what the other teams are doing. But I wonder if they're like keeping an eye a little bit on the other teams just to see how long it takes a good team to push up a key, right? So I feel like that would be important information to see, okay, how long did Echo take to push the 14 halls to like 19 or to get the 19 points? Because then you can kind of estimate your own times. Like, hey, okay, we might need same time as Echo or maybe a little bit more, and then they know when they have to switch to that dungeon at the very end of the day, possibly.
I will say that that's like a great opportunity for like a 6th man or somebody's friend to be able to like help you out. Additionally, you have a little bit of time during the 20 minutes of break period to kind of strategize. Obviously, that'll be used for using the restroom and kind of like standing up and walking around for a little bit, because it's like 5 hours consecutive gameplay is a bit tough. That's why there's required breaks. But during that 20 minutes of break period, you do have some room for strategizing, and that's where you can actually, you know, scrub through the VOD really quick and kind of check out what some of the other top teams are doing. But if you have like a friend that's able to help you out during these competition days and give you maybe some advice as to what dungeon you should be going to next, how the other teams are performing, what the landscape of all these situations are looking like, or maybe even marking down interesting strats that you think that teams might want to incorporate overnight, those are things that are important.
Do you actually know if these teams have that like 6 player, these friends that are helping them out? Because we of course knew that Echo, for example, did have Miras as like a 6 player or coach, but Miras not playing again, so they don't have like officially a 6th person.
I'm getting rumors that Dratnos Guild Team actually has Dratnos while he's commentating. Also, will be helping out his team. That is of course a joke for anybody listening. That I was not being serious. There is no collusion, but. There's no collusion among the caster desk. Or is there? No, I will have to walk that back immediately, even though it was clearly a joke.
And we do see Echo on the top left now, and Primal Tsunami again. Again, you can see that they are a little bit quicker compared to Dratnos Guild Team and Hope. again, not going to be making a difference because as you can see, the 3 chest timer is now over. So the 3 chesting is just not happening in this dungeon. And the 2 chests is pretty easy. All of the teams are going to be making that by quite a few time left over. So yeah, not going to matter too much on this key level, but might matter on the 19. They could possibly 2 chest the 19, which is probably not going to matter for today. But
mandatory 2 chested. Mandatory 2 chest the 19 last weekend.
Yeah.
It didn't end up mattering. They ended up doing a 20, and then they ended up doing a 21 like after the fact. So they didn't go straight into the 21. I do remember them actually
trying the 21, right? Like I think they did the 21 initially, and then they wiped in the last boss.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
They wiped in the last boss, and then had to like reroute overnight to be a little bit faster in some aspects, and then were able to do that dungeon on a Sunday. Now that's one of the advantages of playing in Group B, right? Is that you actually got to see all the splits from Group A, and you kind of know what's a bit more possible. And so maybe teams have in that time gotten a lot more consistent at being able to time that 21, and know what's required to be able to do that, and would be able to one-shot it. Because it's not necessarily about, oh, is this possible during practice, but it's also like how many hours or how many attempts does this take? Because having the highest level of consistency for your one-shot keys, that's like the biggest thing, especially at that 20 to 21 level.
Yeah, for sure. And we haven't seen any of the teams actually make any major mistakes. In fact, we've seen barely any deaths.
I think Jif wiped and had to... I think Jif wiped at some point, had to restart a key. I think I saw that somewhere.
Oh, I did miss that. Oh, that's unfortunate.
It's quite unfortunate for them.
And we did also see Ducks Can Fly. They are in their 17 Asher Vault, and I did see they had 3 deaths there. Doesn't necessarily matter that much, because I do think Asher Vault is also going to be super hard to 3 chest on the 17 for them. So just looking at the timer they had on the 14, but I think the 2 chests are going to be pretty fine. Even with those 3 deaths, they're going to be okay.
I'm getting word that they wiped a Kokia Blaze Hoof and had to reset the key. They wiped they had the boulder blow up on them.
Oh, very, very unfortunate with them. We saw that Roland just a little while ago, but of course, we didn't see the perspective here on stream, but you can all keep an eye on the points of views yourself as well. We're actually having a quick little swap here on the desk. So Zeronic is going to be heading in, and Tuttles is going to be taking a little bit of a break, but Zara, what have you been... bye! Zara, what have you been thinking so far as we leap you into the action here?
Another boulder death, huh? Man. Even Mandatory couldn't get away with that last week. I didn't see it either, though, so it must have been just off screen. Oh, you know, the first 45 minutes is really interesting. You kind of get an idea of whether or not 3 chests will be possible on these key levels. Halls of Infusion, you know, we already saw the Tyrannical Halls last week. We weren't expecting the 3 chests. They are probably just going to be a 2 chest. I think the interesting thing, once again, this week will to see whether or not the Azure Vault 3 chest is a little more doable. I mean, we saw the blueprint from Mandatory last week. They were the only team that was able to get that done in the Azure Vault. So maybe, you know, one of the beneficiaries of being in Group B is you get to look at Group A and see what certain teams did to make the routes go faster. And if people were able to look at what Mandatory did and kind of copy some of their strategies and routes down, maybe they could be just a little bit quicker this week.
Yeah, definitely very possible. As we did see Echo finish off that Halls Infusion on the 17, and Hope about to finish off that boss as well. So now we can see the difference. It's actually just 4 seconds slower for Hope. They were just a little bit slower in the 14, it looks like, or they were slower between keys. But yeah, other than that, Hope having a very competitive time as well in that Halls. So looking very, very good for them as well. I believe they're going to be going into the 19 very likely, both Echo and Hope, to get that +2 on their scorecard and before they move on. So the 2 chests for 19 is possible, but as we talked about earlier, probably not going to start it until maybe the end of the day, if they have some time left to do it then. And even then, we're not sure if they do the 21 or if they do the 20, because if you need some points at the very end of the day, maybe you don't want to risk a 21, which is definitely pretty difficult to do, while a 20 is a lot more doable.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, some things that we need to point out in the draw comparison to the 2 weekends is last week on day 1, our score to qualify for the next day. Not going to be 8, right? We had Mandatory at 59. Every other team had one simple win. 19 stuff came down to a tiebreak. fast times to qualify and move on. Which, you know, kind of begs the question, okay, if you get to Hall Zone 2 just 19, at the end of the day, if that's the easiest 20 on the board for your +1, just just 19, you know, there's a lot of strategy questions. Something else that I think I've heard other people talk about as well as potential time save in order to +1. Let's say for instance, you have a 19, multiple people update, right? You're probably not testing the 19. Maybe you can figure it out, but let's say that you're 100% certain you're not going to be able to test the 19. Does it benefit you as a team to just do 18 instead and chest that? Because it can give you the 20, right? But the 18 chest is going to be slightly faster, so you save a little bit of time doing that instead. Of course, there's a there is a high reward in that you actually save a few minutes of your precious time during the weekend. We actually haven't seen any teams make that mistake because you're encountering potentially save time, maybe get an extra run. If you do that, certain points throughout the game, there's still a little bit of daily crafting and gamesmanship to unlock here. If any of them to go.
I like that a lot. Like, as you start to see, I would love to see an 18-2 chess from some of these teams to save some time. I mean, of course, I guess you also have to consider, let's say you're at you know you can do just a 19. It might not save anything for today if you want to go to 21. But maybe there's too much time to sit there to save one dagger. Then it would make sense to not do the 18. But yeah, that is something that they have to figure out in their strategy of the rest of the day. Because you can do like a KD at the end of the day, but you're not going to be able to do many. So if you decide not to do house, Dragnosis, Guild Team in 19 as well, Epic 19 as well. So no one doing the 18 just yet. Just let's see one of the other teams do that strategy though. I like it.
Yeah, surprisingly. It's the same thing we saw last week, right? The team was just kind of putting about an hour into each key before going for the super high. The one that longest is the timer, dimensional lows, going to the as your evolves. Of course, it's a little more volatile this week, right? We knew what the viewpoint was. String was pretty much came down to the trigger pulls. If you bolster those up too much, your team could very easily get one shot if you're major personal stuff. And I'm talking major, like dispersion, etc. This week, you're just going to be something at some point that happen. But it's about mitigating those happen. You want to make sure, like, so one of the strategy that we saw of teams standing up on top of the books, by doing that, that might not be something you want to do this week, right? Because having the box turn around means that they actually they can't jump. That means they can't jump a lot, so you'll be relying on option stuff. And it's volcanic as well, so standing on top of the book is actually really annoying because you're going to be in a bounce house the entire time you're on that pole. So maybe we'll see the teams actually have to dodge around a lot on that pole. Well, it's going to look pretty different on the high pool.
Yeah, interesting to see some of those frog pulls. If we can maybe zoom in on that whenever we see a frog pull next. I do think Dax Can Fly is doing one more trash pull after Umbral Skull on the bottom left side, as that was something we've seen a lot last weekend as well. So definitely running with that strategy there. I wonder if they do the first pull, like the start of the dungeon, or if they decide to do a ring pull like we've seen some teams do last time. But we'll never know, as we are now looking at Mist Cow. They are Koki under 19. The 19 is oh, just kidding.
Okay,
That's good fly. Let's see.
Mandatory route.
First pull. Yeah, first pull.
That's not surprising at all. I mean, we saw the mandatory routes last weekend were extremely fast in almost every dungeon, and I pretty much fully expect almost every single team to be studied up and at least doing their route, if not something potentially faster. Although if they're doing a route that's faster than mandatories, then I'm impressed. We'll have to see. I think that would potentially come out from either Echo or Mist Count if we had a potentially faster route. But yeah, obviously.
Close for their 2 chests too, actually. Like 1 minute left,
wow,
and they'll make it, but it's kind of close.
Yeah, they'll still make it. I mean, it just goes to show, right? This is a pretty difficult dungeon to actually get the 3 chest off it, right? Only mandatory was able to do it last week. 2 chest. Now, where were those 3 deaths for Ducks Flying? Do you remember where they were? What happened to them?
I think we did not see the POV when it happened. Once we switched, they already had 3 deaths. Apparently in the second boss.
Second boss? Okay, so they probably lost a lot of time due to that. Okay. Well, we'll have to see if the 3 chests is possible.
You have to worry about Sanguine here, right? So 30 seconds left to get the 2 chest, and Sanguine may be causing some issues here. Can't get any healing off if they want to get the 2 chests here.
They've got plenty of time. I think the 2 chest timer here is actually 30, so they were chilling.
Oh, it is 30. Oh, I looked at Halls of Infusion, my bad. Actually 30.
They were chilling. A little bit of extra added excitement from the casters there. We're chilling. They got the 2 chests off.
For the content.
For the content. Miscount plugging away at this 19. Surprisingly close to the 3 chest timer after not 3 chesting the 17. I mean, Ruby Life Pool is on this level on Tyrannical. The timer's actually pretty short, right? Even though Tyrannical does not take a lot of time. This is 2 separate bosses. They do damage in this comp. The boss probably only takes 3 to 3.5 minutes, even on the Tyrannical. You can burst through this dungeon incredibly quickly, and they're going to be well within the 2 chests. Once they're done here, as long as nothing crazy happens at the end of the key. And they'll have that 21 unlocked. I don't know if we'll see that done today, though.
I don't think... Oh, LSB actually going down for Hope here. They do have a Battle Rest available, and Goop is casting it there on that Aug Evoker. That's the thing with the comp, right? If your healer goes down, you have to use that Engineering Rest to get them back up, which of course is doable, but it might take some more time than just casting a Battle Rest. And a healer death is usually something that, if you don't rest them quickly, it can cause lots of issues, especially in a boss like Cajun on a higher key level. So definitely have to be really fast with getting those Engineering Rests off.
Yeah, it's definitely, you know, one of the quirks of the comp. Now, with the way the comp kind of works, the healers should be one of the last ones to die, except for in very particular instances, right? You know, we were talking about this in the Algorithm Academy polls last weekend. Healer almost is kind of destined to die on that poll because of the way that he snaps there. But, you know, that's pretty far from the norm. Usually, they're healing themselves almost all the time. Even in a lot of situations, they're their own target for life bloom, right? Just to make sure they keep themselves alive, so that if someone dies, it's not them, and they can get the battle res off. So the healer going down is pretty rare, in my experience playing this comp. So when it does happen, you kind of have to have the wherewithal and the whereabouts to be like, okay, healer's there, gotta get them up quickly. Gonna know when to do that. So good to see that Hope had that in the back pocket. They got the res off. They're still good to go. Won't have a battle res for the next minute and a half, but you know, Tyrannical key, the trash hopefully shouldn't pose too much of a challenge for them. They should be okay, even on the 19 key level. But we'll have to keep an eye on whether or not that battle res is a problem for them in the future.
Yeah, it looked like they're playing less trashes at the start, right? They're almost 10% count behind compared to Echo and Judgment's team. So playing on the graph a little bit differently. Missed count the top left and Jip on that last loss. Jip was number 17 because they unfortunately had a full wipe on Kogi on their first try of this key, so they had to reset and go again. Yeah, but miscounts, none of those issues, and we also looks like they're going to get the chest. Miscount a little bit closer to the 19 than it is in the 17.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, 15-minute time loss this early in the day, but if time left to play well, we've seen teams come back from mistakes like that. I mean, we saw that 25 minutes on day 1 last week and still finish the day in first. So they're not necessarily out of the competition just yet. They're still well within the chess timer around 17, so still making good progress, you know. Even with the error. Miscount as well, like you mentioned, still 3 minutes on their 2 chess timer as well, so it would be great. They're getting a fantastic push into defeat as well. Going to be able to burn Rocket down quickly. Getting the phase to proper. No more here. Kind of how the timing works out on this key level. You're really only going to get 3 good blood licenses in this dungeon on the super high keys and no lost hook win. You're going to get it late on this boss too. So we'll probably get 2 more flame splits if I had to guess, but if one of Merciful's up there, but the Zephyr coming out here. Okay. That.
After 2 chests in 19, they actually lost a cooldown on destroyer packs rather than saving last for Kokia to make sure they do have the last early on this boss. Yeah, there we go. I mean, Miscount doesn't need the last. It's up in 13 seconds.
They would have gotten the third list.
Very end. Yeah.
They would have gotten the third list within the time chess timer, so I think they're just going fast, really, is all it is here. They're just going extremely fast. Faster than they expected. Going to be an easy 2 chest for them. They got Karaka down. Hurt below 15%. Going to be a 2 chest for Miscount as well. They'll unlock that 21, and I would not be surprised to see them just go to another key push that. That's
not even lasting
the game here.
They're just like, we don't need that last. It's just holding it.
Giga Chad.
Asserting dominance over the plus 19 dungeon. There it is. Alright, so we are also nearing that first hour of the tournament being over, which means that the teams can start taking their mandatory breaks. All of the teams have to take 20 minutes of breaks throughout the day. It just cannot be within the first hour or within the last hour. There was this whole drama last weekend where mandatory had to forfeit a dungeon or leave a dungeon halfway through because they would have gone over that threshold and they would have not been able to get that break done, which would have meant that they get a 5-score penalty, which is insane. 5 score, that just means you're getting eliminated. So none of these teams want that to happen. Therefore, they can start taking their breaks. Usually the teams start taking breaks once they're done with a dungeon, right? Like they choose a dungeon to push on at the start, and once they're done pushing that, they take a break, discuss what they want to do next, how they want to approach the next key, and then go. And you can also break up the break as well. You can do 10 minutes first and then 10 minutes later. So you can do one dungeon, take a 10-minute break, the next dungeon, take a 10-minute break, and then do the last one, which is something we've seen a lot last week.
Exactly. And of course, hoping that it doesn't become an issue again this weekend. We don't want to see teams losing time to that ever. Just want to make sure that they're giving themselves a break, relaxing for a little bit, because, you know, in the spirit of competition, right, playing for 5 hours straight, while you might do that with your key team on live, it really doesn't compare to being in a stressful competition like this. So we want to give them a little bit of break just to relax, so you're not overstressing yourself out. Something to draw some attention to on the top 2 corners. I remember Dorky was pointing this out back then. He was annoyed that it wasn't getting enough attention. Dorky prides himself on doing as much damage as possible. You can see on the boss here, he's doing like 80k, actually 100k.
They did actually have trash though, they had dragon bombs.
They did have a couple of extra trash bombs, but he's kept that 80k to 100k gap the entire class here. Normally that would go down after the trash goes away. I just wanted to point it out because I don't want him to be mad at me again.
So they're probably adjusting their route to always have like trash on bosses just so Dorky can look good on damage meters. Yeah. And honestly, I respect that. Keep it up. But yeah, we do see miscount bottom left. Switching to Halls of Infusion here. So they're not doing the 20 or the 21 that they could do in Ruby. Just sitting on the 19, which I think makes a lot of sense. Because, of course, Ruby being the fastest dungeon out of those 3. And they spend an hour in there. Which, to be fair, is not a lot. But again, the other dungeons are longer. So playing the keys up to 19 initially would be a good starting point. Then you can decide later on what you're gonna do. Also look at what the other teams are doing. So I like the decision. We'll see if the same is gonna apply to the Halls of Infusion teams, if they're gonna switch it up after that Halls as well. Yeah, first they have to finish this 19, which can be difficult on Tyrannical key level. All teams playing super clean so far though. Having very little deaths, only that one death on Hope's side. All the other teams still on 0.
And I think the kind of running theme throughout the weekend is going to be looking at the comparison So I think those 4 are very clear favorites, just based off of not only results, but also just player. I don't know how. I feel like every single player in the top 4 teams is very high quality pusher, probably more known than those in the lower 2 teams. And it's just more veteran players. Now, again, not to say that the other team is slightly less likely than the top 4 teams. I mean, you get across it's already surrounding these 19 Halls of Infusion. I mean, a lot of the casters didn't have hope in the top 3 predictions, but if you look at the splits in this 19 Halls of Infusion, they're going faster than ever, which is, I feel like that's pretty impressive already.
Right? Like there's one actually somewhere. Or
and they're doing it here. They're adding
here, which would not add that much more time, right? If you're just gonna add trash onto an existing pool, you're not gonna be taking much more time. So that means that Hope is still gonna be super fast. Actually, we'll see. We'll see. Once they kill Cajun on both teams, we'll see the proper splits. We'll see how fast they actually were, because that's when they are going to be equal on enemy forces as well. So we're going to come back to that in a little bit. Got the skill team, of course, on the bottom left, also in that halls, and they're also currently in that Proto Dragon pool. So they're also going to be evening out the count, and then we can get an accurate comparison between those 3, which is really cool to see, because of course Jotun skill team, Hope, and Echo, they're all the higher seeded teams. Only missing this count, which would be the first seed. But yeah, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th coming into this weekend, all in that 19 halls. Really cool to compare the routes and the times to one another. Ducks can fly on the bottom right. They're now in their 19 Astro Vault. We did see them 2 chests to 17, 3 chests to 14. So they're also looking pretty clean. They did have some deaths here and there, but none of the deaths costing them an insane amount of time. But yeah, the 19... don't think it's gonna be quite too chestable. At least their 17 didn't have enough time left if they played really well there. But of course it's Sanguine, so it's possible that maybe in the 17 some things went wrong, some Sanguine healing went through, and if they don't have that happen this time, then they could maybe still get that 2 chest. But yeah, looking at Sanguine, unfortunately some going off. I do think Astro Vault with Sanguine can be annoying.
Can be very annoying, yeah, especially with how many casts some of these middle pulls do. Now, of course, in their 17, they had deaths on the boss, which, is never conducive to a fast time, especially when it's tyrannical. So hopefully they can clean that up in the 19, give us a better example of how easily the 2 chests is going to be doable for them. Now, something I want to point out about this Halls of Infusion is it's kind of a sleeper difficult dungeon for the teams, especially with this comp, because it is the one single affix where the Shadow Priest actually has to do mechanics. They don't just get to sit back and do nothing the entire key. Every, 45 seconds or so, they have to cast Dominate Mind, which is just, it's a brutal interrupt to the Shadow Priest damage rotation. And, one of the things that happened in this key earlier on in the mini-boss, Echo had 2 of those affixes go off, so, really takes Shadow Priest out of their element. They really just want to sit back and do damage, and if they have to do mechanics, it's just, it kind of like snaps them out of their trance,
Yeah, poor Shadow Priest, actually. But one thing I did want to note that is just crazy to me is that all 3 healers here for Echo, Hope, and Jotun skill team all ended up doing damage on the boss, on a 19 Cajun, right? I think most healers, when they heal this boss, they just fully focus on keeping everyone alive and just spamming those heals into group, making sure they don't die to these taking damage. But of course, they want to be as fast as possible and maybe get that 2 chest in here to know it's doable, but close, because we've seen mandatory do it last week. So they want to get all of the time out of this, and there's some damage in between keeping the group alive. Good play.
As I was mentioning, both of them were fast. Due to them having slightly less count there, they're now pretty significantly behind Echo on the timer in this 19 fusion. And they're almost neck and neck with Grass. That's going to be a really interesting race to keep an eye on. Both of them stay clean and both of them have good runs. That's going to be really, really fun to watch. Just want to see whether either of them are going to secrets in the back pocket for somebody's higher teams. Obviously, it's harder to have interesting round ideas, especially during group stages here. Unfortunately, that's the fight. The 19 the boss here. Go down, and we were talking about this last week. It's still an issue even without the bolstering affix, right? Because when you're gathering the pull-up, none of the affixes are really active. It's just difficult on the tank. Gathering all those mobs is when you're most susceptible to going down as a Vengeance Demon Hunter, and unfortunately during the gather there, Fur Ducks can fly. They had that wipe, had that death. They did put a savior down. Can we go back to a POV and see if they all got back up, or if they're going to have to run back? That could be a huge time loss for them. Okay, looks like the savior worked. Everyone got away from it. They got the full res off. So they're going to be able to go again here. Probably lost about a minute if I had to guess. A little unfortunate, but way better than having to all release it back.
Yeah, and they're still not looking at 2 chests or 3 chests here, right? Just looking for a +1, which they can for sure still do with those staff supports if they play clean for the rest of this dungeon, so they should be okay to move on here. It just can't be demoralized from this wipe that happened there. But really nice heads-up play to put the savior down. That is something that all of the people, all of the players in their teams should have bound. And also remember the keybind. I think one of the things that happens to me is like spells that I rarely ever have to press. Like the keybind, but then at some point the situation happens where you have to press this one thing that you press only once every week. And then you somehow have to remember that keybind on the fly, and I'm sure he's practiced it as well to make sure that one of them is always ready.
We're always kind of struggling for comparison on Star Wars Day 1 because it's different dungeons and the score is, but having 3 of us all running the same key at the same time as time fusion gives us a pretty solid comparison of the teams. If we we're at least there's a clear outline. Lasting this 19 here. Look at the Kajin split there. 21-19 compared to a 22 48 from Hope. Good case for themselves early on day 1.
Yeah, that's actually a very good sound. But this skill team being very, very good here. We're gonna, yeah, they're definitely getting close to chest timer. We'll see if any of the teams is getting it. If any of the teams would be getting it, would be Dreadnought's guild team, right? We also have to look at the efficiency on how they deal with this bridge. As I talked about this earlier, if they finish off the Rangers first and they're going to be spawning the green boss a little bit earlier, and they're going to be But yeah, also means that the pool is going to be a bit harder because, of course, the Rangers are not the most dangerous mob in that pool. So having to focus them down while you could be focusing on more dangerous mob doesn't feel great. Ooh, Timber actually does go down to inundate by the mini-boss here for Dreadnought's guild team. They do have 3 battle rests, but again, it's the Raster Druid that died, which means they're going to have to use an engineering rest, but they also have to... Okay, there we go.
They're good.
I thought for a second that he was in melee, which would have been a little bit of a problem, because of course you're trying to outrange the inundate cast, which just have a 40 yards range. So if they have to go into melee to cast the engineering battle rest, could have caused an issue, but never mind. Timber also out of range there, being that moving for him. And benefiting off of the 45 yards range. So that's a rest for him. Just continue to cast the boss. Everyone else is still out range. It's a good indicator for the rest of the team on where they have to go. That's not what they
just I think the overall victory of them is not going to be consequential because we're really looking at the chest.
我还在等。
It might actually be possible for Gravis to also so the 2 chest is almost certainly off the table for Hope, and looking at Echo's timer, probably off the table for them as well. Remember, they started this game about a minute faster than Red House Gold Team's timer is a little bit shorter on the 2 chest timer. I mean, this would be massive for Red House Gold Team to potentially get the 2 chest off of that.
I agree, it would be massive for tomorrow. Well, it could technically matter today, but only for like first seed or second seed. I don't think it's elimination. But yeah, that would be really, really good for us. We're gonna go straight into the 21 if they get this 2 chest. So we're gonna have to take a look. It's still gonna be close for them too, I think, because they're just starting the division now, and they're gonna be. They have like 2 minutes left at this point. 2 minutes 5. And they've lost it. So it's technically like yes, that's Echo Hope going in the overtime timer. Yeah, really impressive. How Fox doesn't get to this done this time.
One of the things to keep an eye on is just getting into it. On the intermission here. He's already hit the group. He got good RNG. He is here. Now they got to get through this intermission quickly. A little bit of efficiency on the gather. Get all the kicks off.
我还在接我的队伍加入了一名战友，不过我的敌人也随之变强了。
That means their stacks are going to be damage. It's not going to their burn. They have a little less time on the burn here. Those in their burn phase already, they've done about 30% of the boss sequence in 30 seconds. Where the damage needs to be for Rhino. Have a little bit more here. 60% of the boss down. The cooldowns are available. Just SKP right now, farming that as much as possible. That the damage comes out, the Bloodlust is popped. Once the health bars are up to 90%, they're going to get one ducks can fly. Are they going to keep going? Is that going to be a reset? They're going to keep going. They're not going to do the chest. Burn. Shins on the bottom. 2 seconds on the board. 4 dragons. Get their chest. The bottom.
It's very interesting to see it. I mean, it's just possible that mandatory is just like better than all of these teams. Or is it possible that Spy is just what a question! Is it possible that they're just the best out of everyone at all? It's a title. The point that I was trying to make is that maybe Spiteful is slowing down more than what we think. Because Spiteful is usually an affix that is not something that is very difficult, but it slows you down. Because depending on what you do, right? Like, we do see some skips that they do, for example, before the mini bosses or Double Goliath. We probably some wait for Spiteful to do the trash after Double Goliath explodes. Those trashes. Maybe it's something what we think.
Trying to think of
too. Or just sorry, not to jump in here. Put a question in chat that I thought was helpful in this discussion to go out. Dude, maybe have the same affixes to help you. No.
Really going to be too much of an issue in this speed. Like, you'll have it be annoying during concussion when you're all stacked up a bit somehow. But at the end of the day, like, the worst thing Integra is going to do to you is like stun you for 2 seconds, maybe lose a game. With this affix, there are scenarios where Spiteful can be a thing. You know, when you're starting to kill off bowls and want to just stand there, DPS you have to run away from those spells. Maybe for that would be annoying.
even before there's snow house in the but anyway, Lucy Dash can fly at top right. They had 2 full wipes. So they're on 12 depths. They are now doing that for Talash Grey Wing. So they basically have to finish this pull, do 2 bosses, and then do 1 more trash pull. Within 12 minutes, 13 minutes. Doable?
Yeah, doable.
But close, I think.
I'd say, so the comparison that we were drawing on this key last week on the super high, it's like on the 2021 key level, is you want about 11 minutes for the last 2 bosses on that key level. On a 19, it's probably closer to like 9:30 to 10 for the last 2 bosses, just to be safe on Tyrannical. So they should have plenty of time. As long as they're able to keep it clean at the very end of the dungeon here, they should be okay. Now, they still do have that last trash pack that they have to go back to, right? So that's something we'll have to keep an eye on too. In the meanwhile, on Koki Ablasive, GIF has been having some major issues. They've had 2 deaths during this boss, which has caused the boss timer to be a lot slower for them. They've actually exhausted all of their battle reses that they have available to them right now. They'll have another one coming up in 10 seconds, but by that point the boss will already be dead. They just need to get away from this circle around the boss here. Okay, got the boss down. This level B, they can definitely finish this off. Not going to be getting 2 chests in the night. And, you know, the 19 2 chests, as we saw last week, might not be something to care about, because we can see a 21
我需要更多赠还没准备好。
That's just going to be done.
They're just going.
Yeah, they're going to reset. It's only 2.
Yeah. Probably continued after the 2 deaths. So then the 3 chests there, but again. Yeah, that's something generally the affix switch is something that we players on live servers, they don't experience something like that, and we underestimate how difficult that can be in a TGP or in the ice center, right? Where you go from one dungeon with a certain set of affixes to another dungeon with another set of affixes. All of a sudden you're like, oh, there's burst. Well, before he has 5 kill, and we didn't think about and especially as a wrestler, you have to compare healing master spell, there we go, that's the word, and the priest spell. Yeah, that is something that maybe having 1 line there is okay, nothing losing much time. They want to mention something about Dexter and Fly though, like on the top right, right? They didn't just keep passing 1 to like another issue. One thing to know is that if you in a high key level at the end of the day to get then yeah, right? And I think the 19 could have been too just for them. So do you think it was a mistake for them to not just reset the key and go again and try to get the 2 chests? Because now they're going to be timing it, but they potentially have to do like 1 extra run, right? They have to do the 20 and then maybe also 21 if it comes to tiebreaker. While another team, maybe if Jif goes into the Asher Vault 2 chests to 19 and then gets the 21 on the board, then they can have a pretty big advantage when it comes to tiebreaker for elimination today.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the best play is, and you know, if I were in the competition myself, I wouldn't necessarily be comfortable making that call either. I think committing 25 minutes to a key and then resetting it is a pretty scary idea, and just getting the 19 on the board is probably the safer call. You know, like we were talking about earlier, in Group A, our day 1 cutoff was 2 19s and a 20.